I love that everyone now has picked up on this dating with intention, intentional dating trend. I've always seen that if you date aimlessly, I'm like, if you're like, hey, set me up with somebody, you're going to get somebody. But if you are really specific and you say, these are the 3 most important qualities to me. I'm looking for somebody who's really trustworthy, who, is really invested in their community, who puts family first. Then I'm like, okay, wait, that reminds me of my friend so-and-so.
Welcome to this week's episode of The Dude Therapist. We have Damona Hoffman on, one of the leading experts in relationships, a go-to person on the Drew Barrymore show for relationships and everything love and in between. She's a powerhouse, an amazing human being, and someone who really is an amazing resource for our world. So Damona, before we get into anything else, could we just pause for a second and have you introduce yourself if people don't know you, and they should know you, so get on it, everyone, and just get to know you now.
Thank you, Eli. Thanks for having me. So, yes, I am a certified dating coach and relationship strategist. And, Eli, I've been in the game for a minute, as you know. I started writing dating profiles. I started originally as a profile writer 20 years ago. About 20 years ago, writing profiles for friends that were frustrated with the dating scene in LA. And I realized that I had a knack for it because I was working as a TV casting director and I was teaching classes for actors in auditioning and marketing. So I was looking at actors' headshots all day long and telling them, like, you think you're saying this with your picture, but you're actually saying that. And I was online dating at the time, and I realized a headshot is a dating profile photo. A first date, we all know, is an audition. So once I sort of took what I was learning professionally and applied it to my personal dating life, I met the man who is now my husband. And that's when I started to kind of connect the dots and help people with dating. And then it wasn't until about a little under 15 years ago, that's when I was like, oh, this is actually, people need help with this. This is actually a business. So I've been a dating coach since before people even knew what a dating coach was. They were like, what? So you're like the female Hitch? I'm like, sort of, kind of. But since then, I do a lot of my work is doing content around dating. So as you said, I am the official love expert of the Drew Barrymore show and Access Hollywood. I've hosted a couple of reality dating shows and relationship shows. Don't hate me for that. But I just love and I love helping people learn how to connect better, especially using all of the tools that we have today.
Yeah. And so you said 2 things that I'm so happy you said. Everything you said was great. But love is one of the reasons why I do what I do. And people have asked me if I am Hitch. Years ago, I worked at a psych unit, and the first day I walk in, and one of the patients looked at me and said, "You look like Will Smith and Obama." And I said, "Me? White Jewish dude? Me?" He goes,
I was like, maybe me.
He goes, "I know," but he said,
Black
"Yeah,
Jewish.
It's the ears. It's the ears." And I went,
"Is the ears?"
So for years, I've been called the white Hitch because of my ears and my.
Wait, can we get a profile? Okay.
They were bigger. I've grown into them. Let's just put it that way. I've grown into them. So I love that you're Hitch. It's just interesting when you look at the trajectory of your career and all the things that you've done. And this wasn't one of the questions I was going to ask, but I'll go for it. Like, have you seen that much of a shift or change in what is required for dating? Or is it like the same thing, but people just are adding extra stupidity or stuff, but it's always been the same formula?
I love how you just break it down, Eli. You're like, they added more stupidity.
Yeah, they did.
Stupidity has been added. Complexity has been added. Miscommunication has been added. And fundamentally, I believe that we have fundamentally changed. We do not connect in the same way that we did when I began 20 years ago.
Mm-hmm.
And a lot of times people blame that on the dating apps. Oh, it's because the dating apps. It's because the paradox of choice. I don't buy that. I think that is a factor, but I think the primary factor is the way that we communicate has completely changed. If you look at even one of my favorite movies is Swingers. I don't know if you've ever seen that movie. He's like, wait 3 days to call your babies. It's like, first of all, you ain't calling them. Not pick up the phone. There's just actually, I think it was like a New York Times or New Yorker piece about the etiquette of contacting someone. It's like, do not open call people. You must text first and then, then you can call. But it's so different when you look at how many texts are sent today and how written communication is now our primary communication, especially in dating, in new relationships, right?
Yeah.
And so our brains, and you know a lot about this, from your background as the dude therapist, our brains really didn't develop to understand context in just the written word alone. So we're missing intonation, we're missing body language, we're missing all of that, the communication, the subtle communication that happens when you're talking to someone face to face.
Yeah.
And yet we're operating as if it's the same, as if it's changed, when it's completely different than it used to be.
And it's so interesting because I think, hearing stories from my parents, grandparents, other people's parents, it was like, oh, we met at a dance. We hung out at a bar. We had this event, a community event. This happened, that happened, where we got to see each other and all those things. And, with your book of the Fairytale, was that the Fairytale? Yeah, it's a beautiful book. By the way, love those colors. Those are the colors that I want in my book, like a blue.
Really?
Or like a bright, and they're like, nope, we're going orange. I went, okay.
Well, see, I was worried because the book cover now is blue. It's like an indigo with a pink F, and they wanted it inverted. The first draft was pink, and I was like, no dudes are going to buy this book.
Yeah. Yeah, no,
no
I like
dude's going to buy a pink book.
Perfect.
I don't know how many bought it with the pink F, but the guys that have bought it actually are very vocal about like how much it's helped them.
Good.
So hopefully some of your dudes will see the value in a book with a pink F.
But for you, was that always the fairy? Like, what is that fairy tale? I know you have like 4 core myths that you talk about in the book, and we'll get to that later. But like, what is that fairy tale that you feel just really carries through so many people's minds, or maybe delusions or expectations of love?
Yeah. So the other thing that has fundamentally changed in the last more than 20 years is we don't go anywhere anymore. Like nobody wants to go out of their house. They're just like, can we just shortcut? And I do think dating apps had an impact on that because they made it so easy to connect. But then now there's a lot of friction in moving offline. But to answer your question, the fairy tale, I believe, is that love just happens and that relationships, it's supposed to be easy. And I think that is the core myth, and it's not related to the four other myths, which we'll talk about. But the core myth is that if you haven't found love and it hasn't happened for you organically, or it hasn't been easy for you on the apps or whatever methods you've been using, then something's wrong with you. Then you're broken. Then you're not doing it right. Then you're not living up to this fairy tale expectation. And when we really look at, when I say fairy tales, I mean any stories that keep you stuck. The rom-coms, the fairy tales, the stories from your parents, even just like, I love hearing stories like my in-laws met at a mixer in college. And they've been together since my mother-in-law was 19. And it's like, I love those stories, but also the world is totally different. And also, I believe there's conflicting evidence out there. Like people will say, oh, people who met online have a higher likelihood of divorce. Looking at the data, I do not see that. There was just another article that came out recently that said that. And I was like, show me your receipts, because I actually see that now we are entering into partnership more mindfully, and we require more than my in-laws or your parents or your in-laws required out of partnership. And we want, not just like someone that we can have kids with and grow old with, but they also have to be our business partner, and they have to turn us on, and then they have to also be our confidant and our best friend. And it's like, that's where we get stuck in the expectation that everybody's supposed to be the prince or the princess, and it's supposed to fit into this narrative.
Oh my gosh, I think we should have a 2-hour conversation versus what we're going to do.
Right?
Because
there's a lot to unpack.
There's a lot to, like, it's really such a powerful topic that I think impacts people on the daily. I'm working with a single guy right now who's dating someone, And then the way he describes and talks about the relationship is what I would consider love. And he's like, yeah, but the vibe, or but the way they dress, but, and I'm sitting there going, but you're imagining when you're in your 70s and 80s sitting on a porch and you want them to be next to you. Who else? Like, what else are you thinking? Like, what more do you need? You have chemistry.
What do you think it is,
care about the
Eli?
person.
Yeah.
There's a lot of logistic things in his life, but it's a hard commitment of worry and concern that is this the right person? Right? And I think that you talk about the paradoxical choice, right? There's so many choices. That to me is where people today's day and age really get stuck on. There's a research study that came out. I don't remember who. I always forget who did it originally. I should remember by now since I quoted a lot, that Adam Grant made very popular about maximizers versus satisficers. Right, that there are people who will just want that cherry. They get what they need, but they want the cherry on top, and they're chasing the cherry. They're chasing that little extra. Or the satisficers, the checklist is there, and now they're happy. They can be satisfied. So with one of the core myths of the list, right? Are there certain things that people deserve and need to be satisfied with? And where is the space for that little extra?
Yeah. And I love that context, that story that you told. I've heard from a lot of people. And I also appreciate hearing that guys are just as susceptible to the fairy tale myth as women are. I think
very much so.
We think that, right? All women are like programmed to, I want the white picket fence.
I've been thinking of my wedding since I was 3.
Yeah. No, I wasn't. I didn't.
Yeah, a lot of people don't.
And my husband was much more like, we have to have this big 200-person wedding in the hall and the whole thing. But to answer your question about the list myth, when I'm working with clients, coaching them on dating, I actually give them only 3 must-haves to focus on. So we go through the process of making the list, but then we really drill down into what is actually the most important. And the way that I've structured the Fairy Tale, I identified what the 4 biggest myths were. And then I actually realized as I was writing it that it mapped perfectly onto what I've for a long time said are the 4 pillars of long-term compatibility. And I was like, oh, this is so interesting. Each of these myths sort of has an antidote. And there's an alternative way to look at it. So, when people are really stuck in the list myth, I have them step back and really get into, so the four pillars are shared values, shared goals, and then we get into communication, conflict resolution, which I'm sure you work with a lot when you're in therapy with people. And then we can really unpack what the future looks like, and then building trust and respect is the last pillar. But in the beginning, I'm like, let's just make sure this person's on the same track as you.
Yeah.
So what are your goals for the future? Like, here you are right now. What are you building? And where do you see yourself? And it's very telling that your client would say, I see myself on a porch with this person and when I'm 70. Okay. So let's just see if that's what they want. First of all, is that the same path? So a lot of times people will say to me, oh, well, I want the sparks. I want the chemistry. I want this and that. They have to dress a certain way and and it's like, oh, but they want kids and I don't want kids, but we're going to make it work because we have chemistry, which is another myth, of course.
We'll get there. I know it's on my list.
Right. Yeah. So it's like, you have to really clarify when you're dating intentionally. I love that everyone now has picked up on this dating with intention, intentional dating trend. I've been talking about this for 20 freaking years because I've always seen that if you date aimlessly, I'm like, if you're like, hey, set me up with somebody, you're going to get somebody. But if you are really specific and you say, these are the 3 most important qualities to me, I'm looking for somebody who's really trustworthy, who, is really invested in their community, and who puts family first. Then I'm like, okay, wait, that reminds me of my friend so-and-so. But if you're just like, anybody, then you'll waste a lot of time and energy spinning your wheels and emotionally investing in people that are not traveling the same path that you are.
All right, quick pause. I want to talk to the parents listening right now. If you love your partner but feel like after kids, everything got harder, It's not your fault. It's actually pretty normal. I wrote a book from I do to we do because couples don't get warned about the resentment, the invisible workload, the fights that escalate way too fast, and the disconnect that sneaks in. The book is part real life, part therapist brain with tools to fight better, reconnect deeper, and actually feel like a team again. Because parenting should feel like us versus the chaos, not me versus you. From I Do to We Do is available now. Order at ellyweinsteinlcsw.com. I remember years ago, this is a very Jewish culture story. I was at something at Passover and someone's like, "Oh, I have the perfect girl for you." I went, "Oh yeah? Hi, my name is Ellie. I don't know who you are. How do you know it's the perfect girl for me?" "Well, you're 6'2", you're tall, and you're Jewish. And I heard that you do this and they do that." And I went, "Okay, no." And they were so shocked that I said, "No, like what? I had the perfect girl." I'm like, "You're just saying like you're a man. That's a woman. Of course it's going to work."
You said you're 6'2". That's all that they
Yeah,
heard.
they're like, "You're 6'2". And they're like, "Oh, and you did the same. You work for the same organization. Like, of course it's going to work out." And I think
No,
that
you said 6'2" and Jewish. They were like,
yeah,
I'm
they're
in.
like, "Done. That's not
Doesn't
normal
matter.
for
Have
Jews.
a job, doesn't matter.
It's not normal for Jews. You're 6'2". We got to get the genes." And I was like, "Okay." And it's just so interesting that people have lists and then people don't have lists. And I think the people who don't have lists are doing a lot of harm to themselves because then there isn't any structure. I can go for anybody. Anybody will work for me. I don't believe that because you've probably been on one date or two dates or have rejected people and said, "No, not for me." So when you help someone kind of like narrow down that 3 musts, how do you help them with the extras that now are left over? Because that to me is what lingers in people's minds. But I like that. Oh, but I was hoping for, like, how do you help them come to terms with those things?
I feel like when you align on the 3 most important, it's like the other stuff when you're with someone that has those qualities, it's amazing how much those other things do line up. But the problem is people don't focus in on those 3 things. And they start to make excuses and they start to justify like, well, but also he is 6'2". They'll justify, or he has this job or what, they'll kind of replace and add on. It's like, but wait, we didn't have those 3 core things. So that's where I like step back. Like if I was talking to your client, I would say, okay, let's really go into what is the life that you're building and what are those most important qualities and kind of remind them of the things that are met. And then we can identify the things that are not met, because I would be willing to bet that maybe one of the 3 isn't met, which is just leaves enough of a room for doubt.
Yeah. We've gotten there.
You've gotten there.
It's a party.
Yeah, it's probably those things. And then the other thing that your story illustrates is how much other people are in our love lives too. It's like having someone else say, you should go out with this person, or this person is perfect for you. Then you start to think, well, wait, are they actually perfect? Or am I overlooking something? Or maybe on paper, like we get really consumed with what's on the paper.
Yeah.
On paper.
I think also the opposite, by the way. A close friend saying, "I don't see it."
Yeah.
That also messes with you.
And that affects it too.
One of my wife's close friends said that to her. "I don't see it with you and Ellie. And like I don't get it." And we're married 10 years, anniversary just came up a couple weeks ago, and we have 2 beautiful kids, and like we have a wonderful relationship. Like, you were wrong, and that's okay because you're not the one dating each other.
Right.
You're on the outside.
Yeah. She's outside. Exactly.
Yeah.
That's exactly it. And so the other thing is that a lot of us we're not in touch with our own intuition, our own compass. And so we can be really susceptible to other people. And I just talked about this on Dates and Mates. Somebody I dated when I was in college, but like all of my friends were like, "I don't see it. I don't get it." And I was like, okay, maybe I don't get it. Yeah. And so, I broke it off with this person, and now I'm like, why was I I mean, they weren't my person, but I was so easily swayed at that point by other people's impressions. And like, even when I met my husband's like a major introvert. He's very quiet, very introspective. He's not the life of the party, but to me, he was and still is the most interesting person in the room. But he's not a showy personality. So when my friends started meeting him first, they're like, I thought you'd be with somebody different. In case you can't tell, I'm a little bit of an extrovert.
A little bit.
Little bit. Also, maximizer. He's a satisficer, but I'm a proud maximizer. Like, I'm not changing. Other people didn't see how it worked because they were not in our relationship, but he had all of the goals that were shared goals that were on my paper, quote, and also the values. And that's the sort of extra layer that then when I'm working with clients and I'm like, okay, they have those three, but then what are their views on the world? How do they look at the world? How do they live their lives? And that can really color how we feel with that person. And then that's when we start to drop into, I said that chemistry is a myth, but I do believe that there is such a thing as like chemistry, but I think true chemistry develops over time. You can have a sexual connection with anybody that you meet, but that doesn't mean that you can have a sustained attraction to them. And you have to be in touch with your own compass to be able to tell the difference.
Yeah. And, something that I wrote in my book, but I learned years ago when I was dating and getting married, that I call the import-export list. And that's kind of an activity to do with someone that you are dating. And it's it's a conversation of things that you would want to import into your relationship or in your unit, and things that don't work for you because of past relationships, your family, maybe slamming doors, or import is I want to have an open home, right? Good things, right? I want to be able to create this unified vision for us together. Because you're right. You might not have the exact list of everything for yourself personally, but you have no idea what their attributes are, their characteristic traits, their values, their views on life could add those things eventually. You just don't see it right now in front of you. You don't see it. You might not see that, oh, I want to have a big family. I want to have a big home. I want to have my house filled. But that's not top three. It's under family, but you don't know what that actually looks like to the other person. Then you sit down, you go, oh my gosh, they really are the person for me, because how they identify family, what they think of family, what they think of whatever that top three is for you. Like, for example, someone could be being healthy. Is that working out? Is that eating? Is that traveling and taking hikes? Is that, what is that? Is that, dance classes or yoga? Like, what does that mean? Oh my gosh, we're very similar on a lot of things. Maybe it might not be exactly the same. They like CrossFit. I like this. Great. But now we have this import-export of what the unit believes in. And there's a lot more respect and understanding that can be created between the two of you. So just because it's not on your top three doesn't mean it's not on their top three, that now you can fit together to now be, oh, that was actually on my top 10. I never thought that would be part of some of my life, because Damona or Ellie was like, oh no, 3. But now they have it in theirs, and now it's together.
Yeah. And I think also sometimes people will assume that it has to be about sameness. It has to be like, I do CrossFit, and therefore they must also do CrossFit. And
well, that's just a CrossFit thing, because that's just a CrossFit thing, because people are crazy in CrossFit.
I fell into that with yoga. I was like, I must date a guy who does yoga because I do yoga so much. No, wait, I don't need to date a guy who does yoga. By the way, there's like 6 of them. I don't need to date a guy who does yoga. I need to date a guy who respects that I love yoga and that I'm going to go on my yoga retreats once a year.
Yeah.
He's going to be totally in support of that and not try and take that from me.
Yeah.
And that's where I'm at right now. My husband cannot touch his toes, like, to save his life. Life or death. You're like, touch your toes, Seth. He can't do it. But he understands that it's a big part of my life, and he gives me the support and the space to do that. And I see this also just with, like, I see this sometimes with values too, where we don't get underneath the value. So we're like, I value family, and my family is important to me. And so I need to be with somebody who also has a big and loving family. And then they meet someone who's a child of divorce, which they have no control over.
Mm-hmm.
And they may value family. They may crave and desire family because that's something they didn't have.
Mm-hmm.
But then they're being discounted because they don't already have the thing
Mm-hmm.
that is on both of your goals or values list.
Yeah, like someone who is a only child. Well, I was hoping for someone who had multiple siblings so that we can have a big family get together every year. Who cares? That's really the reason. If everything else lines up, you're like, well. So I think it's just interesting how these things get in the way and how it really can butt heads with like opening our hearts and minds to a potential of someone who has so much to offer us versus we nixing them because of some random thing. And I had a client years ago who was like a bodybuilder, strongman kind of guy. And he was dating someone and she was a big hiker. And he said to me, he goes, Ellie, I hate hiking. I said, so? She likes hiking. Is she making you go to the hike? No, but like I want to connect with her. I said, great. So here's my suggestion. If you have a top 5 thing of your week, priorities of your week, top 10 of the priorities of your week, throw it in the rotation once in a while. It doesn't have to be your number one like it is to her. But like put it in there once in a while. Show up for her. Hey, I'm willing to make the sacrifice and go, but it's not my priority. It doesn't mean that I care for you any less. It doesn't mean that you hate me because I don't like going. And guess what? She's not doing bodybuilding. Do you judge her for that? Of course not. I said, let's go. Enjoy.
Yeah.
Just throw it in the rotation. Once in a while.
Yeah. And we
give
confuse...
that, I see you. I love you for like your thing.
I love that you guided him to a realization that sometimes we will mistake activities
Yeah.
and an interest
and
for values.
And interests, yeah.
Right. And also hobbies change. Like I always say, let's say you love tennis and you're like, I've got to date somebody who also loves tennis because I want to play tennis with this person. And like, here goes your ACL. Well, now what happened to your tennis game? And there's so many interests that, you change. You've been married 10 years. I've been married 18 years. My husband used to go it was perfect. I would go to yoga on Sunday. He would go to the sports bar and watch his fantasy football team players in all of the games for 6 hours.
Yeah.
And then he was like, yeah, I don't know. Football, head injuries. Maybe I don't like football anymore. And I'm like, okay, good thing I didn't I have friends that were like, I'm going to try to make my own fantasy football team so I can go with my partner to now what?
Yeah.
Now he has other interests, but the values are still there. And the other thing that story illustrates is how important it is to keep community. That's another huge thing that has changed since I started doing this work. We tend to, in this search for the perfect person, the fairy tale character who's going to fit into our narrative, we sometimes let the supporting cast fall away. And then we forget that, I have my yoga friends. We do yoga together. We do yoga things together. We retreat together. I don't try to bring my husband into my world. I maintain my world there. And my partner is additive to, there's other things that we do together.
Yeah.
But I see a lot of times now that we are expecting our partner to be aligned with us too much. And then we let our other relationships suffer. And I think that's a real mistake because, your friendships, your family, the people that made you whole while you were single, if you can get to a place of wholeness while you're single, which is the best case scenario before you start dating, they're the people who are going to be there for you, regardless of what happens with the relationship too.
Yeah, I got 2 points on that, and then I want to jump into chemistry and soulmates because those things I think are so important and amazing topics that you write about and talk about so often. Is that I think there's this the myth that I talk about often is the cup, right? This person needs to fill my cup to its entirety, and we want to be with someone who fills the cup more than other people might. but my wife has her abilities and her skills and her strengths and weaknesses. So is very smart, but doesn't like talking about, let's say, philosophy or intellectual topics or history, let's say. Yeah, I got my dad for that, or I have a friend for that. She's not less of a success in a relationship or any problem because she can't fill the cup that way. Because my dad can't fill the cup that my wife can. My friend can't fill the cup that my wife can. But my wife can fill the cup in ways they can't. Okay, she's filling her cup in her ways. It might not be to the full, but it doesn't mean that she's lacking because she can't get to the next level of filling. It's not in her wheelhouse. She's not a problem because of that.
Yeah. I love
We
that
have to find that
analogy.
community, right? We have to find that community
Yeah.
of people to go, oh, pour a little of this, pour a little of that. Okay, now my soul, my whatever you want to call yourself is now full, and you mix and match things. But to expect one person, that's what codependency is, where I rely solely on one person to give me anything and everything all the time, whenever I can and whenever I want. That's unhealthy. The healthier thing is called interdependence, where we have myself, they have their thing, we have we things. Wonderful. And it's about mixing and matching, plugging and playing depending on the day, the week, and the reality of your life. And that fills your cup naturally versus forcing it or relying on someone. And when you take that person away, what are you left with? Nothing.
Half
That's
a
not
cup,
good.
I think.
Yeah, that's not good. That's not good.
My cup is already full. I just have like a lot of cups. Or like
I love that. I just got a lot of cups. I got a cup in every room.
A lot of cups. But yeah, you're exactly right, Ellie. And I know you're writing about this topic, and it's so valuable for people once, like, this foundational stuff that we're talking about absolutely impacts then the work that you end up needing to do
Because they're
later.
not doing that
So
stuff.
it's like the more you figure this out now, makes Ellie's job a lot easier. Also further down the road too, you know, when you're going from I do to we do, like,
please make my life easier. Please make my job easier.
Right,
Please.
right. If you haven't done the foundational stuff, then people are like, what if we never talked about, you know, like I have a framework for moving in with your partner, because that seems to be, I call in the book, the relationship escalator. It's like,
yes.
Oh, well, right.
Yeah.
And now we've been dating. Oh, let's see. Oh,
it's time.
It just turned 1 year. I guess we better move in together. And then we have to get engaged within 6 months. You know, I'll say to my clients, so I have this checklist of questions that you should ask before you move in. And they're like, what if I didn't ask those questions? What if I don't? Well, you know, it can work, but you're going to have to backtrack and do that work eventually. Because if you don't, it'll show up. It'll show up in, you know, very frustrating ways. And then once your lives are intertwined in interdependence, not in codependence, then it's just so much, the stakes are so much higher. And it's so much harder to unravel. But I feel like everybody's like in such a rush to get to that goalpost. And then you're like, well, now it's more complicated than if you had taken your time. And this is why I talk in the book about slow love. If you take your time to build it mindfully. Yeah. I mean, just culturally, I feel like we're also always looking for red flags. I think this is just a product of the world that we live in and social media, and probably also a little bit with dating apps too.
Yeah.
I'm all about green flags, Ellie. I just want to talk about green flags now. Like, how do we look for reasons to say yes instead of reasons to say no? Because the reasons to say no are endless. You can always find them.
You ever see that guy on social media who he's like the flag guy? I'm sure you've been tagged on, like, maybe you haven't, but
I'm not sure.
He analyzes dating videos or relationship videos, and he's like in a field, and he has two flags, huge flags, and he picks up the red flag and he just starts running, and he starts getting really sassy, or a green flag. He's like, finally, and it's a very like hilarious way of pointing out or just being very silly about the idea of what you should look for. So can we talk about the idea of chemistry, right? And how does chemistry to you, what does that mean? Why are people so like, I need to have that spark, I need to be so in sync, and how that ties into your concept of slow love? Because some people think that chemistry should be quick, go, boom, boom, fireworks, you know, I'm on cloud 9, but that's not slow, we're in it, we're there. So how do you deal with those things?
I'd say there's a difference between there's attraction and then there is connection, right? And what I encourage people to do in F the Fairy Tale is to go towards curiosity over chemistry. Because the chemistry, it is a chemical reaction and it's quick. It burns fast and then it can burn out. Or it can be really, and I know you know all about this, it can really actually be a sign from your nervous system, a warning sign that you're misreading and you're like, oh, this person makes me feel uncertain and there's like an element of danger. And so I'm feeling something and we are so numbed out overall, especially like post COVID. Like if you really think about I think it's a combination of the never ending news cycle. Like there's always bad news in your feed. And I really feel like we have not come to terms with the collective grief of the pandemic and how much we lost, like people, lifestyle. We gained a lot, but we just kind of moved on. We're like, okay, well, that's over. We don't have to mask or maybe we do. I don't know. But, we just kind of were like, well, let's just move past that. But we were waiting for at least 2 years through a lot of collective grief and uncertainty. And that sort of uncertainty to have at a sustained level kind of makes you care about nothing. Like it lowers the threshold for your reaction to anything. So I feel like what I see is that the threshold for like caring about another person has gotten higher. And it's not that I don't hear from people like, oh, there's just so many people I'm attracted to. Like there's chemistry all around me and I just don't know who to choose because I'm so overwhelmed by all of my options. Instead, I hear, I've been on the apps. I've been out with so many people and I don't feel anything. Or I often get the question, what do I do? This person, like they don't have my top 3. They don't. I also give people one deal breaker, by the way. They don't they're not great on paper, but I really like them, or they really hurt my feelings, but I really like them. And they're the only person I have been attracted to in the last however many years.
Yeah.
And that sincerely, that concerns me. If you're like, there's no one you've been attracted to, you're dating out here on the apps, you've been on the apps for 2-3 years and there's no one, there is one person that you're attracted to, that to me says your picker is way off and maybe actually turned to the off position. So then we adjust by leaning into the curiosity first and not even looking for that chemistry on first dates. And then the other thing I do is, and it's in the book too, I condense the first date. I get to the first date quicker. We're not texting before the date because that sucks out all the air of the room. And then it's like, oh, well, I'm not that excited anymore because we texted about all this stuff. And the other thing that we do is we leave the date on a high note. So like 90 minutes tops if you're meeting somebody from a dating app, because it's just really hard to sustain that high energy. And then you're on the date for 3 hours and the energy drops. And then you remember, I don't know. Did I have a good time? I don't know.
Yeah.
They're okay.
They're okay. I like
Wasn't that attracted to him? I don't know. Should I go out again? I'm not sure. But if you leave it on a high note and it feels like there's more to be continued on this date, I'm so curious, I want to know more about this person, then that is the kind of energy that leads to second dates and third dates and beyond.
Yeah, my rule of thumb for people when they go on first dates is, are they serial killers? Were there any terrible, were you really disgusted? Or was there something so atrocious that you were like, I cannot be with someone who either, let's say, the way they deal with other people or how they spoke to you, or things that are very upfront and center, that this is a problem. I cannot be around someone like that. Why not go on a second date if everything else is either neutral or good? Because first dates are, nerve-wracking, scary. Some people are not so great with first impressions or things of that nature. And you're like, nope, they didn't smile as much as I hoped, or little things that aren't deal breakers or problems. If there are no problems, why not try? because it could give you that curiosity to see something in a different way. And I always tell this story about my wife and I. We had an unbelievable first date. I literally came home and I looked at my parents and I'm like, I need to date this person more. Like, this is great. Second date was one of the worst dates of our lives. We had a terrible date. We both agreed. It was atrocious. I took her to like some weird karaoke / pool billiards place in like, I think Koreatown or Chinatown in New York City. And then like I was trying to be funny, but it was coming off as rude. Like, I just wasn't on my best. But we were like, oh, but the first date was great. This is a bump. Well, let's be curious to see if we can give it another shot to the third date. And that was an awesome date. We had a great time. And it was just this openness to not shut something down because it was off or weird, knowing that there was a connection to then create some idea of curiosity to see what could be. So I love that idea, like chemistry versus curiosity, because just because you don't feel the sparks or it doesn't hit right away doesn't mean there's something wrong. And sometimes if it hits too hard, too intensely, sometimes it could be off because your nervous system is telling you something. So I love that you talk about that. Not everyone talks about that idea of the nervous system kicking in.
Fight, flight, freeze.
All that fun stuff. I have 3 more questions left, I promise. When it comes to the soulmate idea, right? I think it's so ingrained, whether it's from Disney, whether it's from like Ryan Gosling in The Notebook, and all those kind of rom-coms.
By the way, I hate that movie. I'm like,
yeah, I was forced to watch it in high school
totally
when I
made
had
the
a high
wrong
school
choice.
girlfriend. I know. Well, because
Anyways.
we can kiss in the rain. You know how hard that is? It's very slippery and wet. Like, come on. It's like the thing with the Spider-Man upside down kiss. You know how hard it is to do that? Like, stop fantasizing about those weird things. Just like kiss straight up. That's like normal fantasy. Straight up. Stop with all the weirdness and the wackiness. Like, I want that. When it comes to this idea of soulmates, I believe that there's not, and maybe I'm controversial, I don't believe there's one person for everyone. I think there is one that might hit all the markers that could be quote unquote perfect, but I think there's so many people that can be compatible that really fill your world in beautiful ways. So when it comes to soulmates, why is it so ingrained and why do people chase it so much and then don't see who's in front of them that could be such a wonderful opportunity?
Yeah. Well, the soulmate story, that is a long lasting fairy tale, really. Like, and I track it back in the book to Greek mythology.
Yeah.
Even saying, the soulmate. It probably, I haven't done all the research, Ellie. It probably existed even before then. And it's this idea that like I'm looking for my other half. And that I am not complete. My cup is not full. I'm not a complete person until I find that other half of my soul. And I'm 100% with you that there is not one soulmate. I think soulmates are made. I think you decide to make someone your soulmate and to build your life together with someone. But yeah, I believe there could have been many other good matches for me. Other than my husband doesn't believe in soulmates either, but I believe that we have grown to be quote soulmates, but I also kind of believe like my daughter's kind of my soulmate too. Don't tell my son, he's not really my soulmate, but I love him. But it's like a different connection. You have a different connection with, we were talking about this like constellation of characters and people in your life that make your life feel full. It's the stories. It's our adherence to the fairy tale and the stories that make us want to be on this quest for one perfect person. But I actually think it's an out that we're trying to give ourselves because, look, I know how frustrating and discouraging dating can be. And if we feel like, well, it's just that I haven't met this person, then we don't have to grapple with all that stuff about ourselves. We don't have to grapple with, like, I believe that relationships are a mirror. I believe they're a tool for our own self growth to become the best humans that we can be. That is why we are in relationship. That, to me, that is like the main thing, like, yes, procreation or whatever. But I think they're really there as tools to teach us to be better humans. Yeah. And I know I have learned the most from my husband and from my kids. So I really, I hate that people use this soulmate as a reason to not get vulnerable and to not do that work, because it's like, well, I haven't met my soulmate and they're out there. Yeah. It's like, no, there are so many options out there. And when you look at it, it's really like a growth mindset thing. You know, if you look at it from a place of abundance, it's like, there's a lot of people out here I could match with. It makes the road honestly less bleak, less discouraging.
It's very scary, by the way, to think that there's only one person and I haven't met them yet and I might not ever meet them because they live in another side of the world. That's scary. That's crushing.
Totally.
Okay, I'm never going to meet
them. And it's just really not realistic. It's like, really, there's one person out here, you know, and I think about all the time, like with clients, how many factors had to line up for their partner to come. Like, I tell the story of one client in the book who I helped her connect with her person on a dating app. Now, she found out when she met him that she lived 5 miles away from him. They had gone to the same high school, but they were 5 years apart. I don't know what it is with the fives. They were 5 years apart, so they were never at the high school at the same time. They had worked at the same company, but in different divisions, so they never crossed paths. And it's like, to think that that person was so there close, the whole time, but like the timing did not line up. So some of this soulmate search, it's like finding someone. This is why I come back to the shared goals and values. Some of it is just like, you got to catch the trains at the same time because they may be across the country. They may be in a different, maybe they were in a different relationship. And like my husband's aunt, she ended up connecting with somebody on Classmates. She had never been married. He was married. He went and lived his life. They were living in different states. They connected on Classmates. They went to the same high school. And she ended up getting married for the first time in her 50s because that was the timeline. So, I mean, was he her soulmate? I don't know, but she chose at that time. And so, you know, a lot of times the story is it's so pervasive too, because we'll retroactively tell the soulmate story. Because anytime I say soulmates don't exist, chemistry is a myth, people go, but I had a situation where I met my person and it was love at first sight. And it's like, you retroactively told that story to yourself. Because I can tell you at least 5 other stories, Ellie, of when I had love at first sight. And I'm not married to any of those people.
You know, it's funny because my wife and I also, we worked for the same thing, but a year apart, you know, similar friend groups, this, that, like, she was in LA and I'm in New York. Like, we were never going to meet. But because of this, that, and that crossover and this thing, and then this had to get canceled. We were supposed to go in a summer program together and but then we end up in LA and then I saw her again. Then like all these different things lined up. Yeah. Does that mean that she's my soulmate? I don't know. But she's pretty close for me right now. Like that's like right now she is. And like we've worked on that. You know, 2 more questions. When it comes to the idea that you are like the official expert on the Drew Barrymore show, you're dealing with celebrities and things of a different world of quote unquote the normal people. But are there really that many differences? And does fame really impact that dating struggle?
That's a really good question. There are differences, but I work with celebrities, but I also work with people who are kind of celebrities in their own worlds too. Yeah. Like we tend to just look at celebrities are living a different life, but like my dad was a doctor in my hometown and everybody, he was a pediatrician. I go through high school and people are like, Resnick, is your dad Dr. Resnick? Yeah. And I'm like, oh my God. Like it felt like I was the daughter of a celebrity. Like, can I just live my life? No pictures, please. No, but you know, the stakes are high for everyone in terms of, you know, vulnerability. I see this a lot with clients that I work with, whatever industry they're in. There's a fear of being judged. There's a fear of being vulnerable. There's a fear of their living their life. And with social media, like we're all celebrities now, like in social media, there's so many more questions of when do you share about this person? And then if you share, do other people know this person?
Hard launching, whatever that means.
So yeah, soft launch, hard
launch. Soft launching, hard launch.
Yeah. So, you know, the biggest challenge I think is that kind of universally with celebrities, it's hard to tell who is in it for the right reasons. But I see some of those same themes for my clients, whether it's because of their business, their profile, their finances, their attractiveness.
Yeah.
Like we have all different things that we place value on. And so, yes, it's essentially the same. I have fewer tools available. Full disclosure, I've never actually coached Drew. People are like, "Why is she always talking about how bad her dating life is?" I'm like, "No, I don't work with Drew in that capacity. I'm on the show helping her
The people
guests and the audience members." But she, and I did convince her to go on dating apps, but she can only really go on Raya, and like Raya is a lot of see and be seen, and like just as people are like, "I'm dating Drew Barrymore," like that other people want to say, it's like it's like clout. So it is challenging. It is challenging for them, and it's also challenging to get someone that understands their lifestyle. And so, like that's the big takeaway I think for your audience is, regardless of someone's social status or how their social media or their celebrity status or whatever, like, is your lifestyle aligned? And like, can you understand? Like, I always worked in entertainment. My husband works in entertainment. That was one of my top 3. I actually wanted to be with someone who was in entertainment because they would understand what that lifestyle is like. Like right now, he's on set for 7 weeks. Like that's not going to work for every lifestyle.
Yeah.
And not everyone's gonna be interested in being a Hollywood wife.
Yeah.
And maybe like my assistant's husband drives a truck and he's gone for months out of the year sometimes. It's a lifestyle that you sign up for.
Yeah. Same thing with sports, sports world and, being away. No, and it's more just an interesting thing that I was hoping you would say, and you did say, the idea that like they are human, things happen, and just because it looks all perfect and looks all amazing and looks all magical, that they have either money, access, a certain level of attractiveness, that their struggles are real, and it is, but not different at the same time. And that is just a human struggle in maybe a more public, out there way, which on its own is just like, I honestly, as someone who is works with couples all the time, I really do hate everyone commenting on other people's. Can you believe they got divorced? Or can you believe they broke up? Or yeah, I can. Could you believe they're dating? Sure. And I think we're just so enamored with that world that it just like, we stopped thinking like regular people and just like, I can't believe that they broke up. They were perfect together. You don't know anything. You're just watching like, this celebrity with that celebrity, or that athlete with this person, and this singer with that guy, and this singer with this person. Like, and
yeah, I sometimes get asked to comment. I also work on Access Hollywood, and I get asked to comment on like, and people like, oh, this new, and I'll be honest with you, it is not my favorite. I'd much rather like have the conversation that you and I are having and look at the data and analyze what the trends are than try and figure out the body language of Taylor Swift and Travis Kelce.
Thank you.
Oh my gosh. The number of like, oh, well, I read into the body language and she said this and she looked at him like this. I don't particularly want to do
and that. Whether it's real or not, or publicity or who cares? Like, let them do their thing. Like, just, like, who cares?
Yeah.
I can have a whole nother episode about that. But the last question I have for you, Damona, because I know your time is so precious. And
so is yours.
Yeah, I know. But I know like my time limit. And when it comes to your unbelievable work in the book, and now I get, how hard it is to write a book, and the heart and soul and the blood and the sweat and the tears that we put into writing. If and this is a 2-part question, but the same idea, and you can take it any way you want. If someone was going to pick up your book and you would want them to take away 1 or 2 things that they can really hit home, or to go buy the book, or if you have 1 to 2 takeaways that someone who's listening today can really just put into their world, or a mindset shift or something of that nature, what would it be?
Well, I'll start actually with the words of Drew Barrymore, since we left off there. She said, she called the book Hope with a Roadmap. And that meant so much to me, because that was really my intention, Ellie. Like, I wanted to let people know it's not hopeless. And like people keep asking me, why is the book called F the Fairytale if you're so like positive and optimistic?
Because it's catchy and an awesome
love?
title.
Because catchy and awesome title. But it also captures that it's not F love. It's F these expectations, F this fairy tale idea that it's not going to happen for you or that you have to change to be lovable. And so really the book is an invitation for you to understand yourself deeper and to date with intention and realize how much is actually in your control. Because a lot of times people will come to me and feel like they just don't know what they're doing in dating and they feel like it's something that's happening outside of themselves. And it's you can't control other people, but you can control so many of the factors in dating and how you prepare and how you show up and how you follow through. And that's what I aimed to do with F the Fairytale.
Thank you so much for being on the show. I really appreciate it.
Thank you for having me. I really appreciate your time and you sharing me with the Dude Therapist audience. And I can't wait for your book.
I can't wait to send it to you.
Follow now on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, and finally, see me on YouTube at The Dude Therapist.